What's up, everybody? Fresh off the, let me just turn this volume down. Was fresh off the Boots Stanionis fight. Jaron Ennis finishes him after the sixth round. Boots doesn't come out of his corner. Both the fifth and sixth rounds, Boots was definitely he stepped it up to a different level in the fifth round. I felt like Stanionis was having a really good fifth round, and then he just started hurting Stanionis, hurt him with a body shot, and nearly puts him down. And then in the sixth round, he puts him down, and Stanionis survives the round. Looks like he had a bloody nose. He was bleeding all over the place from the fifth round over to the sixth, and he stops him in the sixth. I gave Stanionis in my card. I gave him the third round, which was also a close round, but I gave Stanionis a third round. I just think Boots started out in the first round with his jab, using his movement, just keeping the distance. Stanionis was trying to close the distance. He landed some good left hooks in the early first round, and he was trying to be a dog in there, but Boots was just way too strong. Boots was landing uppercuts. Boots was landing jabs. Boots was using his legs and movement. Um, it just Boots was just better all the way around. Stanionis was landing some good shots, and he was pretty accurate when he did throw. But like I said on the live, Boots didn't respect his power, and I said this in the third round. And I think that part of the reason why Boots did get hit in this fight, in the Avanesian fight, and the Karen Shukajan fight, he doesn't respect their power. So when we criticize him for getting hit, we got to also remember that I think he could be more cautious. I think he could keep his hands up, but if he doesn't respect their power after feeling it, he's willing to stay there in the pocket and trade and take those risks and get hit. I did catch his pops telling him in the corner at one point, one of the rounds, like, yo, when you're in exchanges, keep your hand up. And his pops is telling him what to do. But at the same time, Boots, if he doesn't respect their power like that, he's going to do what he wants to do. He started showboating, maybe around the fourth round or somewhere around that. And he was just looking like himself. Shout out to anyone that made money. I know I made money. I didn't, I don't like putting my betting picks in a breakdown no more. I like to do it on the live because I want the people that's watching my live to know where I'm going with my money. But at the end of the day, I did pick Boots to stop Stanionis straight up. I didn't go based on rounds. I was thinking Stanionis was tough enough to go further, and he probably would have if it wasn't for his corner. But his corner seemed to like want to stop the fight, and they told him before stopping the fight that they were going to probably stop the fight. He was getting busted up. His nose is probably broken from the bleeding. Salute to him though, because he did give us a good fight. Um, he is the first and only Lithuanian champion ever. So that's still for him. But he was just outgunned, and I just think that his style, like I said in the breakdown, his style is just he's too stationary. He fights out of that high guard. And even though he landed some good shots here, he's just too stationary. There was a point like in that third round when he started to really pick it up on the jab, and started to really connect some good shots, even in the fifth round before he got hurt. But at the end of the day, like Boots was just more consistent, you know what I mean? Samuels really couldn't do anything with him. And great win for Boots. Again, and I want to say this, and I want to repeat this because this is a very important point that I brought up in the breakdown. Sometimes, even though Karen Shukajan was not the opponent that we thought would be as good as he was, especially after watching the first fight. We know that the first fight was a boring fight. Karen didn't really engage with him, he ran. The second fight, he was putting on the pressure, but he had certain tools that Stanionis didn't have. And even though Shukajan did not have the resume that Stanionis had, he had a style that was more difficult than Boots. And that's why when I do these breakdowns, sometimes I bring up this point like, yo, this guy on paper is better, which is Stanionis. But this guy, Karen over here, has, the movement, the angles, all of that stuff. Plus, these guys didn't prepare for an aggressive fighter that night. They probably prepared for a guy that they would have to cut the ring off on and trap. You know what I'm saying? And we see it all there. And then, I think Dad got a little too emotional, wanted him to end it quick. It didn't really work out that way. And I think style sometimes doesn't mean that Shukajang can beat Stanionis. It doesn't mean that. What I'm saying is, when it came to that style and that fight on that night, Shukajang was just the most difficult fighter for Boots both times. You get me? So, um, it is what it is. Stanionis is a good fighter. Still don't know where he fits in with the rest of these guys because Brian Norman hasn't, outside of Santion, he hasn't really fought any great fighters. Mario Barrios, we already know he's a dog, but I think he's the weakest link as far as the champions at 47 right now. Um, and one point that I brought up at the end of my live, because now we got to bring it back up. When Boots was getting criticized, everybody was saying like guys for 40 would beat him. People were saying Teofimo would beat him. These guys are at 47 now, technically. We're talking about Haney. All right. We heard Turkey Al-Sheikh talk about making certain fights between these guys moving up from 40, like Teofimo Lopez, Haney, Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, Arnold Barbosa, whoever. Can these guys compete with Boots at 47? I don't think so. Ryan, who came in overweight. It doesn't matter if Ryan comes in overweight or not. He's never going to be bigger than Boots Ennis. At least, then he's just not. At the end of the day, I think what happens here is now is, and this is my early prediction on how these fights are going to go. Depending on how long Boots stay at 47, I think Boots is going to try to continue to unify. I think if he can get the Brian Norman Jr., I don't know if he's going to be staying with Matchroom. I don't know what their contract is all about. But if he is staying with Matchroom, they can make fights cross promotion. Brian Norman is with Top Rank. Mario Barrios is over there with the PVC. I'm sure those guys are going to want a good check to take this dangerous fight. They already fell out with Brian Norman Jr. With all that being said, if we can get the unifications, at least one more before the end of the year, where 3 fights could put on line, or let's say Brian Norman could get Mario Barrios before Boots does. If we could get a if we could get a unification, at least one more before the end of the year, and maybe get an undisputed by early this time next year, if not by the end of this year. That would be great. But I'm suggesting that all of these guys that's fighting on this Times Square card, like Teofimo, like Barbosa, Devin Haney, and Ryan Garcia, I'm not expecting them to fight a unification or undisputed fight until they get those names from 40 out of the way. Like they fight each other. You know what I mean? Like Devin Haney and Ryan gonna have their rematch first. Maybe if they were to ever fight a Boots, if he is undisputed, they probably won't fight him unless he is undisputed. And at that point, it may be worth it. And they still may not fight him. You know what I mean? And that's all depending on whether or not Boots even stay at 47. But he said he made 47 easy. He looked great at the weigh-in, and there's also other fights that might get offered to him in the future, like a Virgil Ortiz again. We never know. But honestly, I think that is the only way I can picture maybe one of those guys from 40 to fight Boots at 47. Or they might wait till Boots move up to 54 before fighting for a title at 47. And these guys can just fight off their name without having to deal with a title at 47. All right, as far as Stanionis, I don't think he's done. Him losing the boots tonight doesn't necessarily mean that he can't be a Brian Norman or he can't be a Mario Barrios or whoever else is at 47. So it doesn't really mean anything. It just means that he can't beat Boots. So Boots is technically unified, and Boots finally beat an actual champion outside of just receiving his belt through email since Crawford moved up. He is officially a title winner. You know what I mean? All right, so yeah, I think I covered all grounds. Thank you for you guys for coming through the live tonight. You know, I know it's been a long time, but it feels good to be back and to talk to you guys. I had fun tonight. It was a short live. I think it was the perfect live to be the first live back, being that it wasn't like 4 to 8 hours long. And I got to just relax and chill with you guys. I had a good time. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Please hit the thumbs up on your way out. Do me that favor. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Y'all have a good night. Peace.